Well, hi again. I'm back and just want to continue a little bit about what we were talking about, the twofer, where your wife and you are doing essentially everything. Um, you're fixing the sound system, the copy machine, cleaning the church, all those kinds of things, and still get less than really you can support a family on, which I mean, I understand some churches are like that. They don't have all the money they need. But when we first started, we were in that situation too. And it actually was a help because in Wisconsin, you get what they call badger care. And if you make less than a certain amount, you get that and you qualify for it. So we were able to get medical for nothing. And the deductible was zero, and it was a great help, especially when our son was in school, because we didn't have to worry about him getting injured in a sport or something like that because he was covered. So there was quite a few years that we didn't want a raise or a huge raise because that would raise us above that level, and that can be an advantage in a lot of ways. But the church board, especially, they need to understand that eventually the time will come when you want to get raised up in salary to a point where you can live and do things that you would like to do. Besides, saving up for retirement, that's something that you really need to think about. Um, when we retired, we're getting Social Security. And because of the salary that I was making toward the last 4 or 5 years in ministry, the Social Security went up quite a bit. So we can live on the Social Security. However, um, a lot of pastors won't have that advantage. Um, my first wife passed away, so uh, my second wife now, she worked in the business world, and so her Social Security is a lot higher also. My first wife, had she continued to work for the church, she would have got nothing. Um, Her Social Security would have been just maybe a few $100s, and I've seen that kind of a situation in a lot of pastors. So um, you should have something in place, at least by the church or yourself, to raise up money enough to retire on. And retirement is, do you really retire? As a pastor myself, I'm still doing a small fellowship, and um, there's other things that I still do. I occasionally drive bus for the school district, and that kind of thing. So there's things that you're not gonna just sit down and I used to tease my wife and say I'm gonna sit in the front porch and watch the birds fly by. Um, yeah, that's really not what you're gonna do. As a pastor, you're gonna want to be involved in something, and certainly there's going to be things that you will want to do, and it'll bring income. So you know, um, after our son went into the Marines, uh, there was no need for the Badger care anymore. Um, I have the VA. I was a veteran, or I am a veteran, and so I have VA medical. But my wife at the time, before she passed away, did not have any insurance, and so we were able to work with the church board and find an insurance policy that would work. Now it was a what do you call it? catastrophic insurance. It wasn't, I mean, I think it was $5,000 deductible. And that worked okay. And of course, the church will help, and you should avail upon them to do that. But now she worked as the secretary. She did bulletins, newsletters, Sunday school, music, all those kinds of things. So, I asked the board if, if it would be possible that she would get some kind of salary. And pretty much what I was thinking was just like $20 a week, which is not, impossible. But one of the board members, I remember he said, well, she should enjoy volunteering. She should like to do what she's doing. And really, that was not a good answer because, I mean, $20 a week, really. There were a lot of times that I was pretty upset with the board, and I'm sure that there's times where you're upset with the board as well. There's a fine line in that way. The board can be a huge help, and they should be. But also, they can be a huge discouragement. And I think in a lot of cases, a board is a huge discouragement to a pastor, because it seems like they are fighting you. And I remember one individual said, well, all you want is yes men on the board. And I said, well, if we're all doing the same thing, if we're all after the same goal to minister the gospel of Jesus Christ, then what's wrong with having yes men on the board? I mean, I don't expect them to agree with everything that I say, but I do expect them to want to share the gospel and want people to come to know Jesus Christ as their Savior. So, one of the other things I really hated was the annual business meeting. The board members, the chairman especially, he would say to me, what do you want? And I would say, well, that's a difficult question to answer, because if I say that I want a raise, and, a substantial raise, then I'm greedy. And if I say, well, I don't want any raise, then, oh, well, he's happy with what he has. There's no good answer. And I used to just say, well, whatever. And of course, they were happy with that. And I felt, and most churches are congregationally run, where the congregation votes on things. Well, that's good in some cases. But, kind of the way I felt was put it up to the congregation. Most of the time, the board wanted to run it all and wanted to say, well, this is how much you're going to get. But why not put it in the congregation's hands and say, let's give them 3 options and let the congregation vote on it, because they're paying for it. So why not do that? I mean, the scriptures are pretty clear about the workman being worthy of his hire. And, I just felt that, why should I feel begrudged or upset over things, when if you leave it in the congregation's hands and let them make the choice, well then, I know what they feel. And congregations are a lot easier than boards, actually. I remember one board member, he said, well, we can't give you much of a raise, we're just going to give you the cost of living. It was like 3% or something like that. And I said, wait a second, I hate to be, disagreeable, but, we had just gone through a building project, and the church had been busting at the seams, and so we needed to build a building. And so for 10 years, we built this building, and it was 3 times or more the size of the church that we had originally, the building that we had originally, and went from about, well, when I first came, it was about 40 people, and moved up in the new building to about 200. And so I said, well, if you were in a business and you were the one that helped uh, increase the business 2 to 3 times the size that it was before, wouldn't you expect something similar in a raise, or at least some kind of appreciation? And they just looked at me like, yeah, but this is what we're going to give you. And that's why I went to the congregation and I just said, put it up to them. Well, many of you are living in a parsonage, and that's really a nice thing. A parsonage can uh, give you a lot of security. All the utilities are paid and things like that. But what happens when you retire? Or what happens when you move to a different ministry and then you need to have a house? They don't have a parsonage, which is the case in some churches. So what do? If you don't have the money saved, or some kind of money that you can buy a building that you can have a house, then you're going to be renting, and you're always going to be into that rent situation where it's going to be difficult. So churches need to consider that. Boards need to realize, and I only had one board member really ask me, what do you need? And what are you really, needing personally? That was huge because I never had any board members ask me that. It was always, what do you want? But that was just concerning salary. This guy actually asked me how I was doing at home personally. And most pastors don't know what's going on in your home. They don't know what's going on in your personal life. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because if they did know, then they would feel like they have to do something about it. And so here's what I'm going to do in the next program, the next deal that I do here. I'm going to make a plea to a board. So you don't have to. I always felt that there should be an in-between, a mediator or a liaison for the pastor at the church. That boards don't look at it the same way the pastor looks at what he's doing at the particular church. And so I'm going to address the board, whatever you have, a deacon board, elder board, whatever it might be. And so you can use the next program, the next set, and just hand it to them and say, watch this. And of course, you can watch it first to see what I'm going to say, but it's not going to be anything nasty. It's just going to be pointing them to what a pastor needs, and that they should be aware of what you go through. And so that's going to be the next one. I think I've got enough time on this one, and so I'm going to drop it, and then I'll go to the next program and record that too. So I hope you're hanging in there and keep on trusting the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him, because He does have it under control, and He will work it out for you. So take care.